Episode of Crypto with English. So we have a 2-for-1 today. This is our second episode of of today, and I'd like to introduce to you all Robyn Linn. She's the CEO of Vetter, and she's also working with Skylabs on a variety of projects. One of the major issues in this space today, and there are many to say the least, and we could speak candidly here. There are dubious and you could say questionable projects floating out there. And often, when the shit hits the fan, so to say, it ends up being a reflection of the industry as a whole. And we're not necessarily at that point in time where the messaging has effectively parsed between the blockchain conversation and the crypto conversation. More often than not, these things are kind of conflated. So I'd like to, again, introduce to you all Robyn Linn. Actually, it's nice seeing you again after Berlin. You did an awesome presentation there. We're going to get into the weeds today about, some of the projects you're involved with, Skylabs, and if you wish to discuss later, also Vetter.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just want to make a correction. I'm a community elected advisor and developer to the project. So we don't have a hierarchy structure. We focus on decentralization. And one of the cool things about the project is actually the fact that the community votes on a lot of the decision making. And so as part of the decentralized model, Adam, it can be really challenging keeping up with all of the innovations in the space and blockchain. One of the things that Vetter ecosystem really prides itself in as the ecosystem is to empower the community. And so as a community elected advisor to the project with Vetter ecosystem, and Skylabs is the new project we're launching. So Skylabs is launching out of the Vetter icosystem in 2021. Last year, October, we launched Vetter, which was first called Vetter Platform, and it changed into CrowdX. And CrowdX is a crowdsourcing model, and it collates from the crowdsourcing data. It collates different research from the database. And what it does is it allows for users to sort in the ecosystem for projects that are launching for the first time to be able to get into projects as early as possible.
Right.
And it makes the research process a lot easier. And that's why it was created for the calendar, and obviously working in the crowdsourcing model with the AI component that was developed with our developing team. So we're now at a 9 in-house developers to the project, and so we grew from starting off with the CrowdX model, and now moving into the Skylabs ecosystem with VSL token and staking. So Skylabs is a launch pad that launches only the highest tier projects. What that means is that they're going to meet these projects, and the developers have to meet the highest level criteria of meeting strong fundamentals, as well as being able to showcase that they have a clear path to revenue. And that's actually, you saw me in Berlin on stage. That was one of the things I addressed about having a strong case that their project is absolutely going to have revenue streams built in. So I know that a lot of developers that I met in Berlin and in Croatia at the blockchain events, as well as Rome, which was a huge event, most projects did not have revenue streams built into their model. They didn't know even how to do that. They had really solid tech. And so one of the issues that we have found is that even if you have a great technology and a great DApp, even a great team, it doesn't mean that it's going to last. It doesn't mean that it's going to get past the launch and succeed, even if they have a big budget, because most of the time, most developers don't even know how to utilize the marketing budget effectively. And so Skylabs is really going to bring to the surface to make sure that those involved have the right kind of projects coming in front of them. And the really two key factors that I just want to address before we get into some of the other stuff is Skylabs is different because it offers guaranteed allocations in the upcoming launches. The more VSL you hold, the greater the allocation.
Right.
And the other thing is the staking. one of the things that I recently learned about, which is most staking programs are custodial based. Ours is non-custodial. So when you come in and you stake VSL token, your staking is based upon the staker itself, you and the smart contract. There's nobody, no entity, no person, no thing that can come and mess with the contract itself. It's between the person, the staker, and the contract. And most projects out there are not that way. And we will have a CertiK audit, 2 CertiK audits available coming likely this week. They're ready. They're just about to get released. So I'm looking at getting those posted on the website, one for the VSL token and one for the staking protocols, because it's really important that we let people know how crucial it is to showcase that it's safer than anything else they're going to find in the world of staking. I have a note here because the white paper is about to be released this week.
Excellent.
Staking being non-custodial is controlled entirely by the staker. It is negotiated between the staker and smart contract with no possible interference from an individual or governing team. And it's just something that, we wanted to make sure that we had that CertiK audit so people understood. So what we're launching now is not the launch pad itself. That's going to happen 6 to 8 weeks post this launch. August 21st, we're launching the pre-sale of the token and the staking. And that's what we're obviously talking about today to get people interested in learning about Skylabs, to get in as early as they can in the pre-sale. We have 1,000 waitlist spots available, and they can learn more. People can learn more about that in our Telegram group, our website, and all the above stuff going on. So I just wanted to get all that out before.
Yeah, no worries, and that's a very succinct, great explanation. So thank you for that. So if we're to draw a roadmap here, so often I hear the term empowerment, and I think empowerment, one of the pillars of that is information and being informed, generally speaking. So, in this tumultuous time in history, that tumult, so to say, applies to, blockchain and cryptocurrency. And in fact, I think in any major world crisis and major event, you will hear blockchain and, in fact, crypto uttered somewhere by someone. So when putting together this project, what were the major problems you wanted to address first in order to empower, the various users? Now, I know when we connected in Berlin, one of it was, I guess, one aspect, and this is more specific to, I think, Vetter versus the overall Skylabs project, was the fact there are a lot of dubious projects out there, and there is a lot of unverified information, and I think in various degrees, the information could be relatively benign, just doesn't do anything for you, or it could cause you serious financial losses or breaches in privacy and things like that. So, tell me about your process and putting all this together.
Yeah, I can definitely speak from experience that my very first DeFi project was a rug pull. It was actually a scam. It was a scam. It was, one of those shell projects that, in Telegram, they invite you into the project.
Right.
I didn't have my settings proper. I had no idea anything about DeFi. Someone just said, "Oh, there's this project launching. You should get in." I went into my Telegram, searched for it, and a scam fake group popped up. I ended up putting a 5BNB into the wrong project at the time. This was early on. Wait, I can't remember the date. But it was my first DeFi project pre-sale, and I was so excited. I was so nervous. I remember feeling just so overwhelmed because I had no idea what I was doing, but someone was guiding me through, okay, here's how you get into pre-sales, and here's what DeFi is all about. And I had been actually trading Bitcoin for 5 years, living off of my Bitcoin profits for 5 years, completely traveling and doing my thing, and coaching and mentoring along the way. But I taught myself how to trade So I was like, oh, I
Very
can do
nice.
this. This is something I can do.
You have all like the
And
monitors up with like candlestick charts and oscillators and all that stuff.
oh yeah. No, I was in it. I woke up with Asia markets. I was like, I trained myself.
Very
I didn't
nice.
have an Asian dog like you do, but a
Oh
Doge
yeah,
dog. But
yeah, yeah, Shiba Inu.
yeah. So I was like, oh, I can handle this because I'm solid, right? And I totally got burned. And I realized that it was, a scam project, and that's the typical thing in the
Right.
industry. And so when that happened to me, and I'm not an idiot, and I'm pretty good at educating myself and knowing
Sure.
how to handle myself. And if it happened to me, if I got into the scam project, then it's happening to so many people who, I could afford to lose 5 BNB, right? It wasn't a big deal. But some people, that's their monthly, they need that money, right? So it really hurt me because, as you said, my whole mission in life has been to empower people into economic sovereignty. When I was in my 20s, I worked with startups for, since I was, I guess, 19. I got involved with helping startup companies market their products,
Yeah.
and then turning into multi-million-dollar partnership negotiations, which I was
Very
just really,
nice.
really good at that. And then in my media and journalism career, always working in the industry with celebrities, billionaire executives, CEOs, and politicians. And I even had a job in the government. I had a TV station, and I would report on all of the amazing things happening. So I always had an in with what was going on. And I always seemed to find myself in these really interesting, elaborate conversations with really wealthy people. And I became very jaded at a very young age because I got to hear a lot of the stuff in terms of how money was being used at the high levels. And
Sure.
it really impacted me, and I wanted to be able to help people find a way, as well as myself, to find economic empowerment, to be able to create sovereignty for myself financially, to live the lifestyle I wanted, and to be able to empower people to make their own decisions and not be a slave to the system, so to speak,
Right.
and easily manipulated or stuck in careers that were just disempowering for them, as you were alluding to. So when I found the process of DeFi in terms of like, wait a minute, you can get in early and within sometimes minutes become a millionaire, and so the promise
Yeah.
was there, but at the same time, like you said, as quick as it is to make the money, just as quick as it is to lose it. And so you have to know what the heck you're doing, and you have to have the right kind of information available to you,
Right.
and it needs to be easily accessible. And so one of the things we realized as a community was that and this is a fact, 16,000 projects launched in DeFi alone last year. Vetter was one of them. And so amongst 16,000 projects, how many could you legitimately get into within a week?
Sure.
Like, I mean, it's impossible to sort through them all. So Vetter ecosystem, the CrowdX platform, became, really well known because it really sorts research in a really well structured way. Within 30 seconds, you can have at one glance everything you need on one page, and have all the links you need to Telegram, to Discord, to like all of the red flags, the vetting
Right.
community. And also the projects post-launch are audited based on timeframes. We have a lead auditor, Ryan, who's fabulous at auditing the projects post-launch. So the data that you receive and see and access in Vetter Platform dApp is actually audited for efficacy to be able to maintain the data integrity, which obviously is necessary in the space, as far as we mentioned. So when I got involved in DeFi, if I had Vetter Platform, I would not have gotten involved with the wrong Telegram group. I would have had the calendar in front of me. I would have clicked on the Telegram
Oh,
group
sure.
right before launch, and I would not have lost my money. Instead, I probably would have done a 20x on the project that actually I was supposed to get into.
Yeah.
And there's just so much, like you said, empowerment that people can learn from by just having, as having the right information in front of you, being able to not waste time, to not get overwhelmed, to be able to like not be emotionally distraught by what's
Right.
coming at you, which crypto can be chaotic. And so we've done our best. The community has, and our developers have, in order to make it a lot more efficient to be able to access information as seamlessly as possible,
Yeah.
and to know what you're getting involved with. So there are red flags, and you should be able to do your own research. It is a research platform. It's not financial advice. We're not financial advisors. We're not suggesting people get into these
Of
specific
course.
projects. But as I mentioned, the project came to be because there's so much chaos and there's so many ship projects, that why not have a place to come to be able to research really fast, to know what you're getting involved with, and to make your own
Right.
decisions. So we believe that CrowdX, Vetter platform, all the projects launching, Skylabs, vSale, all of our launch pads, everything that we launch out of the ecosystem exists to empower people,
Right.
to be able to bring research forth in the best way possible, to be able to crowdsource the data so that people can work together to collate this kind of information, and to be rewarded for it. There are bonuses,
Right.
of course, as well. And to be able to, as I like to say, and the brand, if you follow our social media, we're talking a lot more about it now, which is to educate investors to become more mindful investors, and
Right.
more mature investors. And so, you can be a crypto investor, and not that I'm discounting people from a personal perspective, but you can be a very immature investor, and you can be investing in this space, in any kind of financial market, and be very immature in your investments. But what we're trying
Right.
to do is to establish an environment, an ecosystem where anyone without a PhD, without any kind of degree necessary, any age, that they can come in and understand that there's a place for them to become more mature investors. And at the end of the day, that can translate into a very healthy financial, portfolio for themselves,
Right.
which is because they're making better decisions for themselves, right? And it's just really about awareness and being mindful. And yeah, if I can do my best to help people, reduce overwhelm and emotional anxiety in the world, I feel like it's going to be a better place. And if every individual is economically free, is financially free, to be able to not be in debt. In Europe, right? When we were in
Right.
Europe,
Oh, yeah.
I was talking to people, and they had this ease about them, and they said to me, Robyn, like, you guys in the United States, like people in the US, they live off credit card debt. They're like, they go to college and they have debt. We go
Right.
to college for free.
Mm.
We get our health insurance paid for. Like, we don't, like, you guys have it really quite bad. We feel, they kept saying to me, we feel really bad for you. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
a lot of the investors I met traveling and representing the investors in Europe, none of them had debt.
Yeah.
None of them had debt. They had money put aside that they could freely invest with.
Right.
And I thought that was so different, and when I got back, I really felt it, and I see
Right.
people I see the way people live in the U.S. and Canada, and it's just like there's this feeling of desperation and like not enough, never having enough, always, feeling like whatever they're doing, however many hours they're working, it's still not enough to get ahead. And it's just kind of a different way of living out in Europe that I really appreciated the culture and the economic freedom that they actually were able to move from. It
Right.
was inspiring to me, but then it also, when I got back, was a little bit of a little letdown. But it, at the end of the day, I think it inspired me to want to continuously present, like you said, as an advisor in the space, to be able to present projects like Vetter, like Skylabs and VSail, to people all over the world, to let them know that there's maybe a better way to understand how to access information and research projects and get involved and find their own way to, understanding the crypto space, so that they're
Right.
prepared and can benefit, benefit from the space, to be able to benefit from the market. I
Yeah.
think it's an empowering place.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, first off, I think that's a great origin story of yours, essentially day trading and being, I guess you could say, both financially and time independent. I think certainly one of the greatest things about trading, and you could say working for yourself, is that you're in control of your time. And by like you mentioned, getting into certain coins, maybe they go 20x and above, at right times. I think especially years ago, uh, that could literally be a life changing moment. To say, say the very least. Imagine if you're, one of the first that bought Bitcoin, let's say as early as 2012 or 2013, and you just held on to it. Even with the current prices, it's still an incredible, an incredible return. And going into what you mentioned, rug pulls. It seems to be a dialogue out there that there's like this oversaturation of information, and I have to agree with that. It's very hard, I think, just as a baseline, when you're starting in blockchain and cryptocurrency, where does one truly start? I would liken it to traffic. There's all these cars in front of you, and you're trying to figure out which ramp to take. That is how I kind of conceptualize this. So, as part of your process, what are the biggest red flags when it comes to a project? Because, like you said, you get these random, almost renegade invites on Telegram. I get them too. Like, I kind of even
Mhm.
wonder, like, how the hell did they get my number, or how the hell did they get my username, and things like that. And don't get me wrong, they put a very, very nice packaging and presentation on some of these. With almost this type of gravitas of credibility, where I'm thinking to myself, if somebody was doing this, and let's say that they were either they were in a very, very bad place, or maybe they were in a very
Mhm.
good place, and they're feeling confident, like it's very easy, depending on how these are packaged, to kind of get sucked into some of these projects, so to say.
Mm.
So what are some of
Yeah,
the
I
things that
it,
come off as big red
it's
flags?
it's a really interesting point, and I did speak about that in one of my speeches on the stage, and I'll continue to talk about it.
Please do.
I remember talking about it a lot in Croatia, and people were like jaw dropped, because there's actually two things really interesting. I was just speaking on in an AMA with this today.
Yeah.
Um, so with rug pulls, there's developers who intend to abandon their project because they're wanting to generate millions of dollars with the intention of rug pulling. And
Sure.
I have a story about that. And then there's another set of developers that do not have the intention of rug pulling and end up abandoning their project, essentially what would be called a rug pull at the end of the day, because they either run out of funds, or
Yeah.
if they have a little bit of funds left, but they know that they can't withstand the project because they don't know how to continue. I've met
Right.
developers over the past year who I've talked to and interviewed, and they're like, well, yeah, we have a little bit of money left, and we're just actually going to abandon it, and just kind of rug pull on ourselves because we can't really continue it. We don't, my
Interesting.
dev left, and my tech isn't evolving, and I don't really know what to do. I got in, and now I don't really know what I'm doing, and they get involved, and they don't really
Yeah.
understand what it means post launch to actually continue the project. Um, they don't take the time to build out their team. The
Right.
entity is not developed properly. Their tech, as I mentioned, is not in house. So they've got a developing team outsourced in
Sure.
Singapore or India, and they're not really sure what's really going on.
Sure.
Or they have a little bit of marketing budget and they end up just saying, I just don't really know what to do. So there are those projects and developers who intend to rug pull, and those are obviously, bad karma on them.
Right.
But unfortunately, there's other developers who don't intend to rug pull and end up doing it because they run into issues later. And so, there's that to be aware of too in the
Right. Right.
industry. But I'll tell a little story. This was before Vetter launched, so it was prior to October. We were in the Discord community, and I was interviewing a dev team that was launching a new project coming up, and I was looking at getting some whitelist spots for our community. So I was like, "Hey, can you throw in 10 whitelist spots for our community? Our top people in the community. I wanted to throw them some whitelist spots." So I'm
Right.
in this meeting, and it's myself and three of the devs from this project and a well-known Hollywood actor
Okay.
from a really well-known Netflix show. It was he was really well known, and they paid him $1 million to promote the project. And the horrible thing, I'm listening into their meeting. They didn't know who I was,
Oh.
um, and they they were like, "Yeah, man. So I hope paying you this million. Um, you're going to be involved with the 20 other projects we've got lined up because we don't intend to let this one keep going. We're just doing this to make a bunch of money. You're going to hype it up, but then we're going to take you into the next. Don't worry, your audience isn't going to care because they're going to make
Oh
a ton of
wow.
money. Just tell them to get in and get out." And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, they're literally creating this pump and dump culture. So it exists. There's these projects that
Oh yeah, for sure.
literally they have the intention of taking with them thousands of people who
Right.
know what's happening.
Right.
So there's this small group, it's like a cult of people who know that this project is a pump and dump. So they come in and they come out.
Right.
But guess what? Thousands of other people or hundreds of other people are losing their life savings when they come in, and it gets rug pulled on them.
Right.
And it's like, I feel like I want to cry. And when I heard this, I, I had to bite my tongue because I was like, did I just hear correctly?
Right.
But it made sense because I was like, oh, okay, that's what's happening. And this was before Vetter existed. So it's like, it's
Yeah.
it's really painful to feel these people coming in and I'm using this word strongly. They're raping people of their financial you know their the money that they would invest into their children's fund, or paying their mortgage or their rent or their car payment or buying food. It's like these people that come in so excited that there's this great team
Right.
launching, and it's like, I just um I I think that even though Vetter does its best to warn, and the red flags, of course, with the vetting ecosystem, the vetters that
Right.
do their job, um, it's still, at the end of the day, we have to be aware that there are certain criteria, and this we is well known in, if you hang out with our vetting community, the vetters. But there's certain criteria that if you meet it as a developing team, like your team being doxxed, like someone like me
Right.
going on video and saying, "Hey guys, I support this project and I have 10 years experience, 20 years experience,
Right.
as a marketer. And I can't promise you specific, results. However, I'm a real person representing a project that means something to me,
Right.
and so when you don't have that, when you don't have devs coming out and you're not sure, like, who's this dev, they have this avatar, they have
Sure.
this NFT, and you're like,
Right.
are they like who are, it's kind of mysterious and fun and cool at first. It's like, it's intriguing and a bit sexy, obviously, but it's like, do I really want to put my money into a project that's not willing to show me who they are? And there's a time and a
Right.
place, I may in the future do a project where I don't want to show my face, maybe, like, but at the
Right.
same time, it's like, why not? Like, why not show up and share with people what's true and real? And we are transparent in that way. One of the criteria of a solid project is docs dev team, but at the end of the
Right.
day, just because your devs are docs doesn't mean it's they could docs and docs fake. They could create a completely fake LinkedIn profile. They could take a
Sure.
whole year, build a whole social media brand, promoting themselves as fake people, and so you still don't know. So it is challenging, and I think you know people do know me and my team as far as like being in the industry and space for 2 decades now. It's like, I am who I say I am. So I think, one of the things that people just have to be aware of is just, feeling at ease with where they're putting their money into. So if you're investing into a project and you can't really tell if there's a person behind it, like a real human,
Right.
you know, if there's no one willing to show their face in a human quality in a project, it's like,
Right.
it doesn't mean it's a bad project, but at the same time, it's just like, no human is willing to share that they're part of this team. That's a little strange,
Right.
as far as where we're going with transparency. But at the same time, I love being anonymous. I love when our vetter community comes in. You don't need to share who you are as a vetter or a scout. You can be anonymous in the platform.
Right.
If you want to be, known as who you are, great. But anonymity and privacy, I think, is part of decentralization. So I'm a big fan of decentralization, but I believe there's this hybrid model, and that's what I think we strive for, is kind of bringing the best of the centralized world with decentralization, which is where I believe we're heading, and I believe that's where we're going to end up, is
Right.
DeFi being regulated so that there are better standards and higher standards that must be met if a project is legitimized on in the ecosystem. But obviously there's always going to be like underground, like backdoor kind of situations,
Sure.
just like with any kind of financial market. But I believe where we're heading is a hybrid model of decentralization with aspects of centralization and regulation, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm hoping for. Skylabs obviously is a part of the Vetter ecosystem, but at Vetter, we want to be, and we are at the forefront of having a voice in that space, so that we're helping steer the space in the right direction to bring the best out of DeFi.
Right. First and foremost, I have to say it's kind of, I would say, saddening, actually. I think especially with the story that you mentioned, how casual um, this little, I guess you could say, this pump and dump rug pull was discussed. Essentially, like, okay, we're gonna have all these, uninformed investors, so to say, just provide us liquidity, and when they don't know any better, we're just go- we're gonna make a killing, and they're gonna leave with nothing, and perhaps in some cases less than nothing if you
But
think
it's
about it.
okay because I have my little, investor community
Right,
following me everywhere, and they're making money, so that's all I care about. I don't think about
right,
anyone else who's like, losing their shirt off of, it's crazy when it's crazy that, like, where's their moral ground? Where, like, how do you sleep at night? How do you, like, I believe in karma, and I believe that at the end of some kind of cycle, short-lived or not, it ends up biting them back tenfold or a hundredfold, honestly. And the project I spoke of, as we're talking about, I know that, yeah, they, they doxed to me. And so I'm not saying I revealed them, but someone that I was associated with got burned, and he revealed them, who they were.
sure.
So
And I can already think of a few celebrities that found themselves in trouble getting involved with various blockchain and NFT projects, just over the past year. So, yeah, I could already think of a few based on kind of what you said, to say the least. So, you mentioned a very important thing before: a doxed, identifiable in-house developer team. Can
mhm,
you talk about the importance of why I would say it's preferable to have an in-house doxed developer team versus contracting a lot of that out to third party teams, whether they're based in
mhm,
Singapore, India, or elsewhere? In those instances, it seems to be
mhm,
hit or miss. I've met people who've had a great experience with some of those third party teams. I've also met people who've had a terrible, absolute terrible experience. But I think for the sake of, convenience and efficiency, I think most people, if they can choose, they'd rather have their team as close to them as possible.
it's one aspect to it. There's a couple different aspects, at least three, that I'm, personally aware of. A lot of developers have come to me from the perspective of having a great vision, having multiple millions of their own money invested, or raising VC funds, and
Right,
even gathering people who really care about what they're doing, and it's a great vision, and they even have utility for their token. It's
right,
really strong rewards, sometimes charitable givebacks and buyback programs. Their tokenomics can be solid. And when they outsource, um, you're giving everything to these teams. First of all, you don't know how the tech is being built.
right,
So with our community, Jeremy James is our software dev, and he's just insanely brilliant. And he got involved with crypto on the early onset of blockchain, was one of the innovators and learning how to code and build on the blockchain really early on in his career as a software developer, and brought in only trustworthy people who had
right,
high level skills to then build, and in our case with Vetter, to build our own smart contracts. And so the problem is kind of twofold. It's, first of all, they're not only outsourcing their entire tech, but they're also not building their own unique smart contracts. They're actually
right,
like pulling from other contracts. And it's not like it's a bad thing entirely, but it's like it you don't really know what you're getting into. So then when you have a new idea as a visionary and you throw it at your outsourcing team, oh, I built this into the model too, then you throw it at them and they're like, I can't build that. You have to
right,
start over. You just wasted
for
two and a
sure.
half million. Why didn't you tell me that? Well, I didn't know you wanted to build that into the model.
Right,
So
right,
nobody's communicating with each other, right? And so very, very different than how we do things, but it is very challenging. It's very challenging, to spend all through the wee hours of the morning, working on refining, the smart contract. And can we do this? Yes. Okay, how? Okay, how does that integrate with where we're heading and where we've been? And how does it integrate with the model? And how do we build it so that we can continuously expand instead of limiting ourselves? And as Jeremy knows, in order to do that and expand, then we have to make this decision now, and it affects tomorrow, it affects
Right.
next year. So most visionaries who don't have the I call them tech guy, but they're much more than that. They don't
Right.
have their tech guy like in the core team in the meetings with them in the vision. What do you really have? It's like that. So
Right.
that's one of the things I noticed. In Berlin, I actually spoke to a dev team. Their IQ was through the roof, and they were talking to me, and some of the things I understood, and some of it I was
There's a
just
lot of
like,
brilliant teams in Berlin, I have to say.
they,
That conference was excellent.
they'd raised 2.5 million, and they had an amazing technology, and they were like, but we actually have to start over, because by the time the visionary shared with us what he really wanted to do next, we realized we had to rebuild the contract because it wasn't going to be able to expand the way we thought. And
Right.
it was because the team was outsourced, because you have this visionary doing his thing over there with his core team, the VC model kind of, wherever they're located in New York or
Right.
Dubai, and they're not on the same page. So,
Right.
there's so many different aspects to it, but at the end of the day, you want to be able to build something that is sustainable. So that's one aspect. And finally, I won't get too heavy into it, but most developers that do outsource that I've met over the past year and a half, they have taken off with the IP and the tech,
Like the source
and
code and things like that.
they're given tokens. A lot of the devs were given tokens,
Right.
and they rug pulled the project. They dumped heavy on the project, and the core team had to give up, even though, like, for example, 3 of them wanted the project. They didn't rug pull, they didn't sell tokens, but the
Right.
one dev that was given tokens and had access to all the tech, he was the one that actually dumped hard, and it failed the project. And because people knew what wallet it was, he literally took off and was never heard of again. Um,
Right.
and that project, I personally know the dev, and he's very, very smart. However, made a mistake in outsourcing his dev team.
Right. I can imagine a few nightmare scenarios. I mean, somebody could essentially run off and build your MVP, build your service or product in another country, and one is going to try to sue against that. That's going to be a very long, expensive, difficult process, especially depending on what jurisdiction, what country. It's Yeah, it could certainly be a nightmare. And I think, like you mentioned, if you're trusting a third party with the entire custody and usage of your code. So, whether it's one bad apple or let's say they're all bad apples, what's to really protect your intellectual
Mm-hmm.
property from somebody that you really, don't know?
Well, and,
Let's
and this dev that I'm speaking about, like, he is so trustworthy, super smart, great vision, amazing entrepreneur, just put his trust in the wrong developing team because
right,
he couldn't build it all himself. Like, we can't all build it all himself. And that was one of the things I actually spoke about on stage in Croatia. I kept talking about this, and I was like, do you trust your dev team? And there was a guy that I met. He had an NFT project. Him and his wife were at this event in Croatia,
yeah.
and they had their newborn baby with them. And the guy looked like he hadn't slept in 3 years,
Oh yeah,
holding his
especially if you have a
newborn
newborn.
baby.
Yeah.
But I look at him and I knew. I go, you're building this all yourself, right? He goes, yeah. I go, it's because you don't trust anyone, right? He goes, yeah. I'm like, like I feel for you. Like you have a great project, but you are not going to make it if you're trying to build this yourself.
Right.
Like you cannot be a one-man show and expect like you don't sleep. Okay, like how does that work for you? And he's like,
Yeah.
it doesn't work. He's like, we did really well at first and now, you know, we're at a standstill. I'm like, you need to build out your team and you need to be able to trust people. And honestly, not saying that this guy had it, but kind of did. You know, ego gets in the way.
Sure.
So here's this amazing developer with this amazing vision, empowering people with their products, NFT. You know, very very empowering project itself. But I was like, dude, you are not going to make it if it's just you.
Right.
Like you have to have a team and you have to be able to trust them. You have to open up. And so one of the greatest challenges, and this is with every business,
Sure.
obviously, Elon Musk, you know, talks about this, is trustworthy core team members in the executive level. You know, why does Elon work so much? Because it's like you can't really bring people in too close because it's really challenging because, you know,
Sure.
it is challenging to trust people and not just to trust them in doing the right thing, but to trust them when it comes to like big money and
Right.
you know, again, ego does get in the way as well as inexperience in the business world. And so what I found in meeting a lot of devs is usually it was one or two people.
Right.
Very rarely did they have a 3-person team. And if they, you know, if it was one or two people, they had to outsource everything because
Right.
they didn't trust anyone and bringing them that close. And so I talk a lot about, you know, before launching a project, you know, before building the tech, you know, for sure you can have a prototype or you can have like a beta model and test it out and see how it works for you personally or a community. But like before really investing millions of dollars and your blood, sweat, and tears and losing sleep over it, it's like build a trustworthy core team who can help grow the project and support the vision, you know, and that's why we're so special as well in the industry because, you know, Jeremy, myself, and Mike, who are the elected ambassadors and advisors and devs for the project, you know, we do our best to bring on people that we trust, of course, but the three of us are solid in being able to trust one another.
Right. And based on that experience, can you tell maybe among maybe in a first introduction or maybe a second one whether the ego is like corroding the team, so to say? Like, do you have kind of like an instinct when you're dealing with, let's say these other projects, to kind of troubleshoot? Okay, this person is let's say, back to the example in Croatia, this
Yeah.
person is taking on too much by himself and is not delegating anything, for
Hmm.
instance. Or, let's say the CEO has too much ego to, let's say, admit some of the drawbacks or the vulnerabilities of the project. Like, are you able to just kind of pinpoint it when dealing with certain people?
Yes. Well, I'll speak of it personally, and then I'll kind of speak to it at
Sure.
large because I think it's important.
Right.
Yeah. So when I started off, you know, and it was funny because I was, as you were talking earlier, I was thinking, you know, it's interesting. When I started off with my career, I just, I think that I had to learn what my ego was personally. Like
Sure.
I had to learn how to feel it. I had to get in touch with it.
Right.
And you know, I've studied spiritual development and coaching for 20 years. I studied with monks on a monastery for 6 years,
Wow.
yoga and meditation for 16 years. Like I've been a meditator, I taught meditation. So what I learned is that first of all, you have to master your own mind and be aware of your emotional state of being. You have to be aware of, where am I at emotionally instead of just reacting. It's
Right.
more responsiveness. Responsibility is really the key. And so what I realized was that there's a lot of deflection and a lot of projection, obviously, because a lot of people don't take responsibility for themselves. Because if you're not
Sure.
financially okay, if you can't do whatever you want whenever you want to do it, you are going to be in a fight or flight state.
Sure.
And you are going to be more reactive than someone like me who has a lot more ability to do what I want with my
Hmm.
life, to live on my own terms, to be able to take care of myself in the way that I do. It's like, but I know what it's like because I was once not there.
Right.
So when it comes down to it in business, like I said, I kind of got tossed in the corporate world early on. And I actually took a career in a university and worked under the president of the university. And I was really good at what I did, but I did not want to help them grow and evolve because of
Sure.
where they were putting the money, the university. Um, they also were disempowering the actual community. They weren't allowing people to live freely. It was very controlled, and the money that was being spent was spent in ways that I didn't agree with. So being a part of, the marketing and networking development team in the university, working under the president, they were prepping me to become the vice provost of the university, and I would
Wow.
just, my ego is like, yay, me, and oh, I'm here. Like everything was just, this is everything
Right.
I've ever wanted. Like I'll be the president of the university one day, to then very quickly realizing that that part of my ego was not well served. But I had to understand, what was my ego, what was the gratification,
Right.
why did I want to rise up, what was it that I was really wanting from my career in my early 20s, like what was I really
Sure.
after. So I really got in touch with my ego, and I really, questioned it, and I went on a journey of learning what that was. I studied yoga and meditation, and really dove into that piece for many years. And what I realized in applicable with business and generating multiple millions of dollars, and bringing authenticity in marketing and teaching attraction marketing and all that, what I realized, Adam, was that the ego is not meant to be silenced. The ego is meant to be supported. My ego should support my goals, should
Right.
support my financial empowerment. It should support me in making as much money as I can, to employ people, to give people opportunity to buy products from great companies, to be able to support communities, to be able to get myself a stronger voice and empower people around the world, and be able to speak freely, and have that voice heard. And and we can see this from people like Russell Brand,
Oh yeah.
and Jim Carrey. He's like, I hope you get rich and famous so that you realize it's not about that. But what they don't
Right.
say is the fact that they have all this money, that you can actually hear them. And so anyway, it's using the ego for good and learning, why do I want this money? Why am I inspired to get ahead, or to be at a position where I have, you know, my up level career, or my status increase, or my portfolio as
Right.
big as it can be. It's like, why do I really want that? And if I imagine that I'm there, and I imagine that I have all access to everything imaginable, let's feed my ego with all of that. What do I actually do with it? How am I serving myself with that? And how am I serving others with that? And when you actually get in touch with that, and you then lead in business with that, that's, I believe, is what creates, the true leadership that is required. And that's why Elon Musk is Elon Musk, because that's what he feeds his ego in a way that, he believes what he's doing is
Right.
embettering the humanity. And
Right.
because he believes it so much with all of his being, every cell in his body is like feeding that, it's serving him. His ego is serving him. So why not use it for good?
Right. And and that certainly absolutely makes a tremendous amount of sense. And certainly I think based on what you're saying, the ego should be something as more of a lens, so to say, and not necessarily a club or something like that too. I guess it should help you see things a bit clearer. And I think with the freedom you found through trading, I think you're able to have that type of, let's say, sensitivity to be aware of what actually drives me and feeds me in the most productive and positive way, or what just kind of gives me a chip on my shoulder because maybe there's something empty or lacking inside. I think,
Right.
I think many of us have made this. I've taken opportunities where, from an ego point of view, it was great. And the moment I started, I just hated it. And I mean, I think those things come with time, but it's always best to say no to those, opportunities. I don't think the price of ego is ever worth any type of sacrifice on, I think, purpose and happiness. It doesn't. It doesn't actually.
Right.
It doesn't. It's not. It's never worth the cost in the end. So I think you touched on some very great points. And
Mm.
as far as both Skylabs and Vetter, could you talk about some of the upcoming announcements that are up the pike, so to say?
Yes, thank you. So Skylabs is the high tier launch pad, and the launch pad itself will be launching projects 6 to 8 weeks post the launch of the token staking. So we have a pre-sale Telegram group, and that is Telegram t.me/Skylabs VSL. And that's the group that is going to be focused on the pre-sale. So Skylabs VSL. Guaranteed allocations. The more VSL you have, the more allocations you have to get into the upcoming launches. Only those who have VSL will be able to get into these project launches on Skylabs. And then the staking is available as well, which we're going to be releasing all of the details about that in the white paper, and then we'll have
Right.
information post-launch about all the cool staking opportunities. But we are doing right now. It's going to be 100% of the buy tax, as I mentioned, onward goes to the stakers.
Yep.
100% of the buy tax, which is huge. And the buy tax is 15%. And then 33.33% of the sell tax right now will go also to stakers. That will get shifted into 20% of revenue share once we're launching projects off of Skylabs and VSale. So VSale revenue, 20% also goes to the VSL stakeholders, which is pretty special. And we have 2 CertiK audits coming, one on VSL token, one on the staking, non-custodial. And
Very
then
nice.
we have 1,000 whitelist spots available. We just rebranded our website. So if you go to Vetter.ai, you'll see a new branded website.
Oh, excellent. Check that
You
out in
can
a moment.
click on Skylabs. There's a whole section on Skylabs. Hopefully in the next few days, you'll see our Git book for the white paper. And you'll also see on the website the 2 CertiK audits for Skylabs. And a lot of people are asking me, like, what are the criteria of projects? And I'll be releasing that soon. We're going to be working, once we launch staking and the token after August 21st, I'll be having an onboarding process and talking more about devs. I'm actually going to be in London on the 23rd of September,
Very nice.
speaking about DeFi regulation on stage. And then I'm looking to go to potentially Monaco, but definitely Dubai in October. And then the event that you mentioned, the Lisbon Web3 event in November, I'm looking to do as well. But
Awesome.
yeah, I'm excited to share more of this, and as we get closer to the launch,
Right.
we'll do a lot more promotion about what's to come, and all of the amazing projects that we'll be launching on Skylabs. And then
Yeah.
I'll have the community, myself, will have educational videos about how to use the staking as well. So we're gonna get that rolling. But yeah, it's just non-custodial staking, guaranteed allocations, revenue shares to the stakeholders. We do have a multiplier, so our diamond holder community knows that we're doing a 20x multiplier for those who have a certain amount of Vetter token and
Nice.
Skylabs. So if you're in tier 1, you get a 2x multiplier. It goes all the way to 20x multiplier when you hold both Vetter token and Skylabs. So you're going to see, most projects don't do this, and I think it's smart if projects did more of this, where you incentivize the community to want to be lifetime holders or diamond holders, and obviously shave off profits when appropriate, but to be able to incentivize your token holders to keep the price above a certain threshold, which is very attractive to keep the project going and growing, and to maintain the project, as well as inspiring new token holders to come in. And that's what we're seeing with our ecosystem. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad Skylabs and Vetter is certainly doing this separating the wheat from the chaff, type of strategy. I mean, you can never have enough, honesty and integrity, especially in an industry, and especially an industry like this that is still very much in many ways in its inception. It is
Right.
it's like a newborn right now, and you don't really know the depth or the scope of the potential. So, being able to decipher and ascertain what are the worthwhile projects pursuing, or what's the worthwhile information, or the sources of that information versus the shit ones, that's a very, very important tool to aid whether you're somebody who's an expert,
Right.
experienced in this space, or whether you're somebody who's very green and just, getting into it. And of course, you want to be able to incentivize, newbies, as they say, to get involved, to learn about this, to, participate. Because you can imagine if some newbie comes in and literally, like, the second day they're learning about crypto, they're hacked, or they get involved in some sort of rug pull, that person's never coming back. They're not. And what they're going to do is they're going to tell 10 people, they're going to tell 15 people. Those 10 to 15 people are going to, tell probably another 10 to 15 people, if not more. It almost like geometrically increases over time. So 10 scorned people, or 10 people that have been rug pulled, they can probably convince about almost 100 people to not even get started with it. Not even get started with this. So, I'm very excited to see what the next few months have in store for Vetter and Skylabs. And of course, it's an absolute pleasure seeing you again after the Blockchain Oracle Summit in Berlin. I really liked your presentation during that event, and certainly this episode is kind of like a little bit of a continuation of that. So listen, Robyn, I have to say it was an absolute pleasure having you come on to the show today, and not just explain some of the nuances with Skylabs and Vetter, but also your personal philosophy. Because I think I think especially when it comes to technology, a lot of blockchain projects, I think one of the things that attracts people to them are the principles of the team members, behind it. Decentralization, that notion alone has attracted people from all across the globe, myself included, to to get involved in this. Because I think most people, and I say most, are pretty well intended. I think if you're in this space, you at the very least believe in many aspects of this technology, and at least want to see a better world today than it was, yesterday. And I think being able to parse and filter out information, separating and categorizing the good versus the bad, that is going to be a silver bullet in really getting many more people involved. Where mass adoption is going to be practical and achievable, in the near future. You certainly don't, nobody wants a situation where the scams and the rug pulls define and end up speaking for the industry as a whole, which, by the way, that has happened, and, there is a perception among people, some people, that like, oh, this something that's gonna, is this something that is gonna deceive me on some level, whether it's my
Hmm.
money, whether it's my perception of the world, whether it's my interaction with tech. So being able to break down those barriers among people is extremely important. So, before I ramble on too much, I think you've ended the episode on a very, very good note, in a very, very insightful one as well. So again, Robyn, thank you very much for coming on again. And like I said, it's great seeing you again as well since Berlin. A lot of things have clearly been happening with Skylabs and Vetter, and I'm looking forward to seeing and celebrating your continued success.
Oh, thank you, Adam. Yeah, it's great to catch up with you again and continue where we started from the blockchain events in Europe, and then seeing each other potentially in November as well at the Web3 conference. And
Right.
yeah, thank you for hosting us today. And yeah, maybe taking some questions next time. We can gather some questions from the community
Oh,
and
absolutely.
and
Let's
do
do a
a
follow-up
follow up.
episode in a few months, and we can make that the Q&A episode, where in real time, of course, we can receive and answer and expand upon questions and answers.
Awesome, wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to share space with you tonight and
Likewise.
share with people in your community about Skylab. So yeah, get on the wait list while you can. We're giving away 1,000 spots, and the pre-sale for Skylab's VSL token and staking is August 21st at 3 o'clock Eastern time. Be sure to go to vetter.ai/Skylabs. Skylabs to learn more. And yeah, look forward to catching up with you again.
Perfect. Exciting things to say the very least. Well, take care, Robyn, and thank you very much again.
Ciao. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.